Hello, Stormies! What's good? Welcome to my channel where we stay up on hip hop culture and news. Let's dive into the latest in hip hop. While you're here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
The British government blocking Kanye West's application to travel to the UK, where he was set to headline a music festival this summer. The controversial star, who now goes by Ye, was slated to perform despite having a history of anti-Semitic behavior. His participation drew massive fan outrage and even prompted some corporate backers to pull out of that show. The festival is now completely canceled after its organizer initially asked fans to give Ye a second chance on BBC Radio just this morning.
We need to be supportive of that and those communities. But at the same time,
isn't that the point? I mean, I hear those words, but they will hear those words this morning. You haven't been supportive of them.
People should have forgiveness in their heart, Justin.
But you can't tell them to forgive. It's up to them.
No, I'm not telling them. I'm not telling them. I'm asking them.
Asking them to forgive. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch is following the latest for us. Look, Jesse, Ye had offered to meet with Jewish community members there in Britain prior to this decision. How are the festival organizers, at this point, reacting?
Yeah, and part of what the Jewish community's response, some of the Jewish community's response in the UK had been that they would not meet with the artist formerly known as Kanye West until he said he was not going to play that festival. But obviously that decision now being taken out of his hands, a UK official telling our colleagues in our London bureau that the British government blocked Kanye West from traveling to the country on the grounds that his visit, quote, would not be conducive to the public good. So broad reasoning there. But this, of course, comes amid all of the blowback for someone who has repeatedly made anti-Semitic comments over the years to be billed as a headliner at a three-day festival in London this summer. I want to read part of the statement from the organizers of that festival. Yesterday, they were talking about how his music is played by so many people, and they're not trying to give him a platform to spread hate, but just for people to hear the music that he's already talked about. But you can see in that statement, the organizers saying in part, as with every wireless festival, multiple stakeholders were consulted in advance of booking Ye, and no concerns were highlighted at the time. The organizers going on to say anti-Semitism in all its forms is abhorrent. We recognize the real and personal impact these issues have had.
Okay, a lot to unpack there, Jesse. But to be clear, all of this is coming amid what seems like a sort of resurgence in the music world for Ye. He performed a sold-out show there in Los Angeles last week. Was there any outrage over that here at home in the States?
Yeah, so the numbers tell an interesting story, Morgan. According to Bloomberg, citing multiple people that they do not name, the two shows that Kanye West just played at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles brought in $33 million, and his Friday show alone brought more than $18 million in ticket sales. And according to Bloomberg, that is one of the highest grossing shows in the history of live music. So clearly he has an audience that still wants to hear him play music, despite what he's said repeatedly. A reminder, he did in earlier this year issue an apology, but he has previously apologized for anti-Semitic comments and then gone on to return to that kind of rhetoric. So the question now, will this time actually be any different, Morgan?
We will find out. Jesse Kirsch for us. Jesse, thank you.
Now, on Tuesday, April 7, the British government confirmed that they had denied Kanye West's entry into the country. And the reason behind that decision was tied to his past anti-Semitic remarks about the Jewish community. Now, I'm sure most people already know about a lot of the things that Kanye said or has said over the past few years. We'll get into that later. But first, here's how this situation even started. So recently it was announced that Kanye was going to headline Wireless Festival, which is one of the biggest music festivals in the UK. I think actually Europe might even be the world. I'm not sure, right? It's a major rap-focused festival, happens every summer, and usually it features some of the biggest artists in the world. And Kanye was set to perform multiple shows as one of the main headliners. But here's where things took a turn. In order to enter the UK, Kanye had to apply for something called an ETA, an Electronic Travel Authorization. Now, if you've ever traveled to the UK, I'm sure you know what that is. It's basically a digital clearance you apply for online before entering the country. I actually did it myself last summer when I went to London, and usually it gets approved really quickly. It took me literally, less than 5 minutes. Simple process, no issues. But in Kanye's case, his application was actually denied. A spokesperson for the Home Office said that Kanye applied on Monday, but the decision was made to refuse entry on the grounds that his presence would not be conducive to the public good. And once that decision came in, everything started to fall apart because shortly after that, Wireless Festival also released a statement and confirmed through their website that the festival was canceled after this. Now what's interesting is this. The festival organizers said that before booking Kanye, they actually had consulted with multiple stakeholders, and at that time, no major concerns were raised. So clearly something changed, because once it reached the level of the government, it was completely out of their hands. I don't know why Kanye wouldn't apply before he actually became the headliner, though. That's a whole nother conversation, right? At the end of the day, the final decision always comes down to the UK authorities, like it always does. Any government decides, right? And it didn't stop there, because as soon as Kanye was announced for the festival, the backlash started building up fast. Major companies like Pepsi and Diageo, which is a huge alcohol company, both pulled their sponsorships from the event. And even the Prime Minister spoke out, calling it deeply concerning that Kanye was booked to perform, given his past comments and controversies. So by that point, you had political pressure, corporate pressure, and public backlash all happening at the same time. And that's ultimately what led to the decision. Now, Kanye actually made a last-minute attempt to avoid the ban. He put out a statement saying he wanted to come to London to promote unity, peace, and love through his music, and that he was open to meeting with members of the Jewish community to listen and have a real conversation. And he also said that he knows that words aren't enough and that he would have to show change through his actions. And obviously, Kanye knows that a lot of the things he said, he just went too far. Now, whether he did that for publicity or that's how he generally feels, I don't really know. Nobody knows what's going on inside the mind of Kanye, right? But what I do know is this. There was a period where he was going extremely hard with the anti-Semitic rhetoric, and it wasn't just one moment. It was repeated statements, interviews, posts, to the point where it became a real issue publicly. And eventually that started to have some real repercussions, because many of the people he was doing business with were part of the Jewish community, and they weren't willing to keep standing next to him while he was saying those kinds of things about their community. Makes sense. So one by one, those relationships started to fall apart. Deals got cut, partnerships ended, and Kanye ended up losing hundreds of millions of dollars through that entire situation. I guess in his mind, he probably thought he could say all that and nothing would really happen, or maybe he just didn't expect the consequences to hit that hard. Because it's one thing to go viral, it's another thing to start losing real money, real partnerships, real opportunities. They say if you want to get back at somebody, hit him where it hurts, the pockets, okay? And that's basically what happened with Kanye. Now, what makes the situation even more interesting is that despite everything that happened, Kanye never really disappeared. Because at the end of the day, he's still Kanye West. And even after all the backlash, the lost deals, the public outrage, he still managed to stay relevant. Now, earlier this year, back in January, Kanye actually came out and spoke more in depth about what was going on with him mentally. During that period where he made those anti-Semitic comments, in that statement he made back in January, he made it very clear. He said, "I'm not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people." He also wrote a letter titled "To Those I've Hurt," where he tried to explain his behavior. And according to Kanye, a lot of what happened during that time was tied to his bipolar disorder, specifically bipolar type 1. He explained that during maniac episodes, he would lose touch with reality and started acting in ways that were impulsive, reckless, and in his own words, sometimes it felt like an out-of-body experience. Reminds me of that clip of Quando Rondo.
It's like I had an out-of-body experience.
He even said that during those moments, he was drawn toward extreme and destructive ideas, including using symbols like the swastika, which he later said he deeply regretted. Now, one thing he also brought up was that he believes all this traces back to a car accident he had back in 2002. Most hip-hop fans know about this, right? At the time, most of the focus was on his physical injuries, like his jaw being wired shut, which is what of course led to the classic record Through the Wire. But according to him, he believes there was a deeper brain injury that wasn't properly diagnosed until years later. He claims that medical oversight played a role in his mental health struggles, and that he was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2016. And he also revealed that in early 2025, he went through a 4-month manic episode, where his behavior became, in his words, psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive. He said that that period basically destroyed his life, or actually he said parts of his life, and even led to suicidal thoughts. And according to him, it was his wife, Bianca Censori, who encouraged him to actually get help and start taking things seriously. Now, he also spoke about how his actions affected people around him, especially his family. He admitted that the people closest to him had to deal with fear, confusion, and seeing him act in ways that didn't even feel like him. And I remember that's exactly what Kim Kardashian said some time back, but a lot of people didn't believe her. He also apologized to the black community for past comments and actions, saying that he let people down. And he made it clear that while his mental health explains some of his behavior, it does not excuse it. He said he's now focused on treatment, therapy, better habits, and trying to move forward in a more positive way. And he ended that statement by saying he's not asking for sympathy or a free pass, but that he hopes to earn forgiveness over time.
All right, that's all for now. Remember to leave your opinions in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. Stay locked in, Stormies!